Cool. Yep. Go ahead.
Awesome. Awesome. So,
Great.
first question I usually like to start with people is how did your journey or how did your past, in a way, kind of bring you to what you do now at Creator Concepts?
Yeah, I think we started off. Well, I started off
Yeah.
building B2B SaaS products,
Mm.
um, but I came from the whole falling in love with like building something, building a tech company, and then I found Bubble and built a product with Bubble, sold it. We had a few couple of thousand users, and it's one of those things where I fell in love with the building process more than selling SaaS. And really struggled with selling SaaS, and I also just didn't really know enough, I think, to sell SaaS effectively. So yeah, freelance for the first 5 years after that, and then only in the last couple of years built it into more of an agency model with Creative Concepts.
Mm. That's another quick question we can dive into later, which is kind of your struggle with selling SaaS. Why did you find that so difficult?
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, I guess the question for you is how did you get interested in the tech space in the first place? Like, what were you doing when you were young? How did that kind of lead you into where you are now or where you were before and, then to where you are now?
I've just always loved technology. I think when I started, uh, I started by building like a social networking system, social networking platform for entrepreneurs and investors to meet via WordPress. So I was like pulling together and hacking together different WordPress plugins to kind of build like a social network. And the movie The Social Network was like favorite film.
Nice.
So
Sick.
yeah, just love that whole like Zuckerberg. Yeah, that was just the big thing. So I think that's some of the story behind it is
Mm.
fell in love with that whole Silicon Valley mindset. When I was even younger, I was sort of like buying phone cases and selling them individually. So I used to buy them from wholesale on wholesalers, and then I used to resell them to kind of like friends at school and did a little bit of eBay trading and that kind of thing. So I've always been very entrepreneurial. I did like a regional business competition. I think came second in that, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Um, and I kind of just decided at that point that's what I wanted to do for forever, basically.
Mm. What do you think fueled the drive for entrepreneurship? Because, most kids aren't really interested in, building a business. Maybe that's changed now. Um, what do you think pushed you into those case competitions and, selling phone cases, kind of having your own hustle in those early
It's
days?
strange, isn't it? I don't really know why I just suddenly decided that I would start. I think I started the wholesale purchasing and reselling first, and then really enjoyed that. So I thought I'd do business at A level, which is kind of like
AP.
final years before college, final years before university, and I loved the whole buying, selling. The fact that you could buy things and then add some value and basically sell it for more was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
The business competition just came up through the school that I was at. They just decided to run it, and I thought we'll give it a go. Built a little team, and just really enjoyed the whole pitching. So we pitched to a couple of different panels of judges, and then we did a whole like pitch to audience. It was just you had to come up with a concept,
Yeah.
pitch it internally at the school. We won that, and then we got put through to the like regional bit where it was like the whole sort of southeast of England against like tons of other schools and stuff, and then we came second overall. So I just kind of came out, and I remember saying to my mum like, "This is what I wanted to. This is what I want to do now." It
That's
was
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the whole pitch, the whole thing. It was great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. One cool thing that you mentioned earlier as well is that you said the Silicon Valley mindset really kind of
Yep.
stood out to you. How were you introduced? Well, I guess the movie introduced you to that. What about it did you love so much and kind of made you get into that?
I guess it's overly romanticized.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's overly romanticized. I think business is a very trendy thing now, a very romanticized thing now, especially e-com, drop shipping, all of that good stuff. Never really got into drop shipping really. Like I just, yeah, it wasn't for me. I just loved tech. I loved apps and software and the whole idea of like you could build software and then sell it infinitely
Yeah.
without any fulfillment costs really. Obviously you've got customer acquisition costs, but there was no going to the post office shipping things out. And I remember when I was having to ship phone cases out, the margins would be squeezed by eBay fees or they would be squeezed by postage, and it was like you didn't really make much. It was great fun, but I didn't really make much apart from a little bit of pocket money. So software you can sell it for X amount, and you basically keep X amount when you take out marginal server costs, which are pretty non-existent for most types of apps. Yeah, so I think it was just a case of I just love the idea of creating something digital. I love web design, so I did a bit of web design for a while, and software was the next evolution of that web design. I think a lot of people get stuck in just doing websites or just choose that because they like it. But I think software is the next evolution.
Gotcha. Would you say that is kind of like your origin story of creator concepts? Like, what was the full story there if you had to give that to us?
Yeah, I'd say full story. If I were to do the journey in a nutshell, it would be
Yeah.
very small retail beginnings, trading on eBay, that kind of thing. I think a lot of entrepreneurs start there, and then getting into web design, then getting into trying to build something more complex, which was a social network using WordPress, and then just falling in love with that whole. Maybe there was a bit of ego behind it as well to think I've got a tech company, and
Yeah.
a tech company with no users, right? But I've got a tech company.
Yeah.
Uh, and you could get stickers, and you could put the stickers on your laptop, and you
There
could
you
get
go.
t-shirts and all of that kind of cool stuff.
100%.
So there was a romantic element to it,
Hmm.
and then I really like building products and seeing really good products come out. Bubble, being a no-code platform, made that a lot easier to do, and I did teach myself like Python and traditional programming at university, and then I just ended up dropping it once I'd mastered Bubble, and haven't really looked back. And it means we can build really cool software and apps for clients in like 4 weeks, 6 weeks. We've even done like weekend sprints before and built something tangible. Whereas you can't really do that with traditional programming. I mean, there's probably wizards out there that can, as is anything, but for most people, yeah, it's no code is just such a better option. So yeah, I think it was just a case of retail, web, evolution of web into sort of social networking, and then thinking software and software products is where I wanted to be, and just stuck with that as a freelancer, and then decided let's turn it into more of an agency. So I do less fulfillment now and more trying to do the content side of things, trying to do the marketing, the sales, and then fulfillment's done by some really great developers that I brought on and trained.
Yeah. And you jumped in that quite headfirst, if I may say so myself. Ever since we talked, that was beginning of June, and now we're here, and you got a couple of videos rolling out. That's sick.
Yeah,
Respect
you know,
that. Respect that.
yeah, you know what? The whole content thing came about where I had a lot of free time because fulfillment was being handled. Ads, ads were running, bringing in leads. I've got a team doing, like an external agency doing the sales side of things. So I was kind of just sitting on my hands, not doing anything. And I've always said it would be amazing to do content, but I've not got the time, right? So it was the excuse I've not got I've not got the time. And I was sitting basically just doing nothing and thought, right, now's the time. And within literally 24 hours, I had lined up for first four interviews, for first four podcast episodes, scheduled the first one for the next day after making that decision. I think I decided at like 5 p.m. and then the next day I had it scheduled. We did it. It's going to go out. I think the first episode is coming out today. Clipped it with Opus. So I kind of just minimized the amount of time between deciding on it and actually doing it, because I knew that if I left too much time, I'd get put off the idea. So trying to build momentum. And I've got another two recordings later today to do. So yeah, just trying to build momentum, trying to build volume of content really, really quickly, and then obviously schedule it out and make sure it comes at a good cadence.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What question did I have for you here? This is potentially a business post you could write. This is a quite
Mm-hmm.
unique kind of angle because you're saying that you try to minimize the time between deciding on something and doing something.
Mm-hmm.
The devil's advocate argument could be that, oh, if you decide, take too less of a time to decide to do something, how do you know it's the right thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
So walk us kind of through your mindset, just this specific point, and how you go about tackling that.
Yeah, I'm a classic overthinker. So I will it's good and bad, right, with overthinking, especially with building apps and software, because that overthinking allows you to come up with creative solutions to problems, which is great. And sometimes I've woken up and it's that weird cliche that probably most people don't believe, but you can wake up with a idea for a solution to something that's been plaguing you in a particular app, for example. So that kind of thing does happen. Like my brain is always on. with that sort of thing and problem solving. I think that's what the brain's really good at, is problem solving. And I knew that if I didn't make a decision quickly, it wouldn't happen. And I've also found through experience that even if it's the wrong decision, making a decision is always the right thing to do. Whether it's the wrong decision in the long term, you either deal with it then, or things change and you iterate that decision and you change direction. It's like people who want to start a business, but they don't know when the right time is, and they don't, they're always waiting for that perfect idea. But the first idea you have is never going to be the final idea that you stick with. I mean, even overnight success stories or the big companies you hear about, they all tried different things, tasted different things to start with. So I think a big mistake is overthinking, not making a decision and then running with it. Because decisions can always be, 99% of decisions can be changed later and iterated and improved, and directions can be changed pretty simply.
Got you. Two follow-up questions for you because I'm also an overthinker. And one of the things, especially when I decide to pivot, is like, dude, I just don't pivot because it's like, oh, if I pivot, if I stick one day longer, maybe it'll start working, right? So
Yep.
I guess my question for you as a fellow overthinker is how do you let go of the fear of if I just keep thinking, I'll figure it out?
You've got to decide between a pivot or a push on the same problem or the same thing you're working on. And I think it comes down to what the market is saying. So if you have, let's say you're working on a business, and obviously with you it's like LinkedIn management, personal branding, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So if it's a case of not enough people know about what you're doing, then just keep pushing until you've got adequate response from the market. And at that point, you don't pivot, right? You just stick to it. It's consistency, and it's just sticking with the same thing for a long period of time.
Yeah.
If it's a case of you've been pushing hard for a while, and the response from the market is that we don't want this package, this solution, this offer isn't what we want, and you're getting that feedback consistently from your ideal customer profile, then it means that maybe it's time to pivot. So if
Yeah.
you've pushed hard enough for a long enough period of time and the market response is that it's the wrong fit, then it's less so about your commitment to it. It's more so about what you're trying to offer to the market isn't valuable enough for them to buy it. And at that point, you'd consider pivoting, or not necessarily pivoting the whole thing, just iterating or changing the offer slightly to match what they're looking for and they would pay for. And that just comes down to asking those sort of people within your ideal customer profile, okay, how can I change this so that it would be a good thing for you? How can I change it so it would be a good fit for your business or your personal brand? And I think the line between pivoting just due to boredom and due to not pushing hard enough and people not knowing about what you're doing is very easy to muddle with pivoting because the market doesn't want your thing. And you just need to be very clear when considering a pivot. What's the reasoning behind it? Is it just because I'm being lazy and want to try something exciting and new, which I've done many, many times?
Yeah.
But is it a case of that, or is it a case of the market response is negative?
Got you. Got you. I think that's a good post that you can write about like pivoting and when to pivot. Especially, what we can do. Is there a story where you can tell where you made an important pivot and how did you know it was the right time versus, you were doing something that just for fun, if you will?
Mm. I don't think I've ever pivoted entirely. It's always just been an iteration. So the same thing, but a slightly different angle, slightly different change of wording. I've started completely different businesses in different spaces. So I started an explainer video agency, which did animated explainer videos for that ran for a few years. And then I've also done a social media marketing agency. So I've had shiny object syndrome. And if you watch any of my, well, the podcast coming out today and the future ones, we'll talk about that sort of thing. So I've had shiny object syndrome for creating new things, but not so much with pivoting. Once I've created it, I will usually try and stick with it and get customers and just iterate the messaging, but not pivot entirely. I've considered certain pivots before. For example, in the video content agency I had, I'd considered changing from doing marketing videos to doing long format training and e-learning videos, and I did test that for a little while, but found that was quite difficult and wasn't really sure on the industry and how to get into it. Just because we had one key customer from that who was in that industry, and I thought would be really good. But actually, it was quite hard to acquire those types of customers because they've got internal teams that do it all. So I think it's really difficult to just pivot without any real reasonings as to why you're pivoting. And most of the time, it falls into the category of just trying something new because it's fun and exciting.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So I think going back to the decision making, kind of idea we were talking about,
Mm.
um, is there a moment in your life where you had the fear because, you were like overthinking and you were like, okay, if I just kept thinking about this, I would figure it out versus then some moment kind of happened and you were like, okay, well, this is time for me to just make a decision. Is there anything in your life where it's like that?
Yeah, that happens a lot, to be honest. And the overthinking, the classic, I suppose, there's imposter syndrome to a certain extent. But I also believe so. Alex Hormozy says imposter syndrome is because you don't know enough or you're not good enough yet. So I get that. I do get that. But there's also imposter syndrome where you do know enough and you know enough because you've done it for years and years and years, but you still get that feeling.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of a balance there to be struck, and I don't think it's black or white.
Mm.
The important thing to remember is that you can kind of figure things out on the fly if you hit technical or problems, barriers that you hadn't foreseen. And that happens all the time. And that fear is always there to a certain extent, but I've just got a lot better now at controlling that, sidelining it, and focusing on what's the. I watched a really good show. I think it was I can't remember what it was, but they were talking about like having a 3 foot world or a 4 foot world where just control and focus on what's 3 foot around you, and if there's no immediate like threat within 3 feet, then there's not really anything to worry about or be concerned about. A lot of people get hung up on negative comments, and even just posting just the initial clips for that podcast. I've already got like hate messages and like negative comments
Oh, yeah.
already, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. But it was one of those things that held me back. That's why I didn't do it for so long because I was worried about that. But actually, when I saw it, I was just like, I just wrote a witty reply, or just ignored it. And actually, I just thought I don't really care. Like it doesn't really matter. They're not right in front of me shouting it in my face.
Yeah.
It's not a real thing. It's just someone on the internet anonymously saying something that they think whatever. And I think I got exposed to that from advertising when I did a lot of VSLs and selfie style ads where people would say I look too young to know what I'm talking about or whatever. You're going to get that in any industry. So I think just overcoming that fear, setting it aside and just doing it anyway, that's the biggest learning that I've had in the last sort of 6 months.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Certainly, I think a good post that we can kind of tie in these ideas to the rest. Um, I actually had a content call with my new hire. So he was someone who, can't really talk about too much of this on camera, but
Sure.
he was someone who I know for a while. And essentially, he was in the same space that I was doing, left the company, and I was like, dude, hey, you want to do your own thing, and, you're lacking some money, and just come to my place. So I ended up hiring him, and he asked me a great question. He was like, why did it take you so long to start posting? Because, you have, experience with over 15 B2B founders. You have 3 active clients right now. Why don't you post yourself? And what you said right now really resonated with me because I realized a while back that my biggest kind of roadblock was I am afraid of what my high school friends are going to think of me. That is my biggest roadblock because growing up, I was always known as that kid who is like, I'm sure you relate to this too. Like you're doing your own side hustles, they're playing basketball or football, and you feel like a nerd when you see them.
Mm-hmm.
You're just in your own little office doing your own thing, and then when they walk by you, I don't know if they laugh at you, but they laugh at me a little bit, where they turn the background and kind of talk to your friend about something. So I always felt this like just judgment in a way of being different. So then when
Mm-hmm.
I dropped out and then when I got into, now doing my own thing, I was like, fuck, if I post about what I do, they're gonna start laughing at me. Maybe they don't even comment on my post, but they might show it to their friend, who is also someone who knows me. Um, so takeaway, how do I go about kind of overcoming that, I think if that's why I hired this guy, because if I am the one writing the content and posting it out, I'm
Mhm.
always going to have that thought where it's like, oh, what are they going to think of this? Especially when you write something personal. So I think the best way, and this is kind of promoting and pitching what I do, but I think the best way is if you hire someone to
Mhm.
do the writing for you, like I've done, basically eating my own dog food. He does the content, and I've told him, I am not going to tell you to not post something because it's cringe.
Yep.
I'm just gonna read it. If the copy's great and the ideas are true, you're gonna post on my behalf, no matter how much I say it's cringe, and you're gonna slap a picture of me on there, and I'll send you some photos, right? Um, so I think that is one way for people that are in our circle,
Yep.
other founders, other business leaders who see the value of posting content. They're just like, what are my, these people from the past are gonna think about this, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
It creates a disconnect, right? It creates a disconnect from that feeling and that feeling of being cringy or being embarrassed. And by having that separation between a professional service doing it and you doing it yourself, you take that emotion out of it, and it makes it a lot easier for you to just go yes or no based on the material itself, based on the content itself. So I think that's a really good strategy. I've tried that before, and I've justified a lot of things using that same strategy in terms of. Um, I'm trying to think of a good idea. Like outbound email, for example.
Go on.
Sometimes I felt like if I write it myself, I'm going to overthink this, and I'm going to try and I've tried working with an agency to do it, and I can just give approval on whether I think it's good or not, and
Yeah.
they can manage all of that. Similar with like cold calling. I've never been one to cold call, but we're working with this agency now who are doing it on our behalf, and I'm not getting my mind in the like. Um, oh, what if we get rejected? What if they put the phone down on us? Like
Yeah.
it separates it as a professional service. So I think that's a really good strategy. What you said there, and I think you'll get people understand that. I also think it's a good gateway to doing it yourself because now I do all the cold email myself pretty much. I do all my LinkedIn posts for the most part. Obviously, you've been a massive help in sort of developing hooks and all of that kind of thing as well, and putting up the photos. And now I still get people, I still get friends screenshot them and send them to me and stuff like that. But I just laugh. I think it's funny, and like we'll talk
Yeah.
about it because the thing is, it's all in your head really. Like the
100%.
people that the people that do see it. Um, and message you, or if you're like going out with friends and they say, "Oh, I saw your LinkedIn post," like I just make a joke about it and say, like it's fine, it's good. Most people don't do it, so the fact you're doing it, I think everyone secretly thinks, "Oh, I'd quite like to be able to do that," but
For sure.
I'm scared or I don't want to do it. Just like presenting, just like being on stage, that kind of thing is that still spooks me out. I've done it so many times, but it still gets to me. Just because you worry about stuff that's never going to happen and never has happened,
Yeah.
like I'm going to trip over or say the wrong thing or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a mentor who gave me some good advice about this, right? Like similar to public speaking. This is a really
Mhm.
good topic, I think, that we're talking about because posting content is quite similar to public speaking because, even though you can edit it, once you post it, you're like, fuck, did I mess up, right? And this guy, what he told me, he was like, there's one good pointer to keep in mind anytime you're doing something presentation. He's like, your audience doesn't want you to fuck up. Like
Mhm.
your audience is not there because they're waiting for you to. Maybe if you have a terrible audience and everyone hates you, then okay, they're waiting for you to get messed up, right? But like most of the time, if someone attends your event, they don't want to listen to a speech that's bad. They're
Mhm.
actually hoping you have a good speech, and they're hoping that you're gonna do your best. So your audience is actually there for you in a way.
Yep.
Um, and there's this other like spiritual book I was reading where this writer, he used to be like a public speaker as part of his like job, and he was not a very good public speaker. He was terrified, and no matter how many of these Toastmasters he went to, like he'd always be scared. So he basically was like, okay, I'm scared. Well, how do I just let go of this emotion? And he just
Mhm.
ended up on stage and saying, hey guys, I'm a doctor and I'm terrible at public speaking. So if I mess it up, don't laugh at me. And people just started laughing. So like it was a really good way to break the ice and just get him to feel that hey, the audience is actually on your side. And
Yeah, and acknowledging that weakness is a really good strategy. I think when I've tried that actually with public speaking, I've said what I was worried about was going to happen.
mm,
So I did a presentation at the London Business Show recently,
yeah,
6 months or so ago back,
mm,
and I knew that there's always going to be a disconnect between the people who are sitting in the seats and me up front, and I kind of felt like we're all strangers here. So I made a big effort of going around handing out leaflets to every single person who came and sat down, just to break the ice with each person individually,
That's a sick.
instead of like
Yeah.
everyone else was just going up speaking. That was it. And when it was my slot, I think I had about an hour. I made the effort to just almost, well, just introduce myself, say what the talk was going to be about, thank them for coming, so that when I was up front and there was like 50, 60 people and there was people stopping by as well, it was almost like just like talking to friends, just like we are now.
Yeah.
It wasn't that whole fear of, oh, all these random people. So that helped just by putting that extra effort in, personalized it, but it also took that stress away. In certain, in lots of scenarios that's not actually going to be possible, but I try, and when that hasn't been possible, I'll just like make a joke and I'll say something that puts everyone else at ease, or at least puts me at ease. Like, trying to think of a good example. If I was worried about tripping over a podium to get on stage, the
Yeah.
first thing I would say when I got up would be something like, well, we've made it this far without tripping over. Let's see how the rest of this goes. Like something just really stupid, but really
Yeah.
simple, that takes the fear that was massive in my head. And then because I've said it to everyone, it just completely diffuses it.
Yeah.
And if I did then trip up, which never happens,
Mm.
you can just sort of like, you can own it and be like, oh, it was bound to happen at one point. So there's all these
Yeah.
little things you can do that when you take the psychological sting and the build up out of it by just externally expressing that fear, not in a kind of, oh, I'm really nervous, everyone, please be, but just be like, I couldn't sleep last night, guys. How's it going? Like,
Pressure.
it's something
Yeah.
that just owns it.
Yeah.
I think that's really useful. And, that's something that's really been helpful for me. And I also think that comes into how you post on LinkedIn. And I've now been doing this consistently every 2, 3 posts a week on LinkedIn with some crazy photo of me on holiday somewhere, or, that classic cliche, but it works really well.
Yeah.
And I've got people messaging me saying that. I will type it out and then I will make sure the copy's good, make sure I'm happy with it, put a cringy photo, and then I'll post it, and then I'll just run away for half an hour and just not look at it. And then I'll forget I've even done it. And then I'll come back a few hours later and there'll be hopefully some likes and maybe a couple of comments and that sort of thing. So the fear there again is like posting it and then sitting there watching the kettle boil, watching people like look at it, not like it. If you just do it, you'll do whatever's scaring you,
Yeah.
then do something else, come back to it later. You'll have forgotten what you're worried about because everything's fine. Same with ad campaigns. I used to do that when I push an ad campaign live. I would just push it live, go and do something else, distract myself, watch some TV for a bit, and yeah, because otherwise, if you don't do that, I've found that I'll turn it off or I'll keep revising the copy and trying to make it perfect. But really, it's just getting it out there.
For sure. For sure. Quick side tip, by the way, those 30 minutes where you run away are actually the best time to reply to comments, because the first hour, if you reply to people's comments, that actually boosts the post even more. So
Okay,
I know it's a
okay,
little hard, but
yeah, yeah,
even for me,
yeah,
I try to sit there.
yeah.
Clients, we post and I sit there for an hour. If people comment, I try to respond back to them, and that usually gives us a good push as well.
I think that's good. That's a good argument for having like an external team like yourself do it.
Yeah.
Is that because you can take that emotion out of it, and it's just you doing it. So I think that's really good. I think now I don't do that as much, but like the first
Mm,
couple of weeks, that's the
for sure.
strategy. But now, like I'm not. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Like if someone no one posts anything negative on LinkedIn, at least for me anyway. But I've not had any super viral posts. Like it's mainly just 1,000-ish impressions and a few comments. But I have seen stuff. People could be mean on LinkedIn, but who cares? And the weird thing is, people that are mean on LinkedIn, it's all linked to their like work history and their employer and stuff
True.
like that. It's
True.
it's
True. True.
crazy. Reflects
The,
badly
wor-
on them more than you.
the worst place to be rude, honestly.
Yeah,
You're so
people
right.
are
I
people
didn't
do
think
mad
about
stuff
that. Yeah.
online. Yeah.
Crazy, crazy. Here's an interesting post we can do. People in your space who, to my understanding, you said are people who usually are, higher to high net worth, and they want to build their own app. Usually they know nothing about development, and, you've been telling me how you were finding them through Facebook. Do they know the difference between Bubble and traditional programming? And is that one of the selling points behind Creative Concepts?
Yeah, it's one of the selling points, and it's also one of the biggest points of contention for debate, or at least objections with new clients. It's only really objections with clients who are typically a bad fit. for what we want to do anyway.
Mm.
So business clients, established businesses, they love the idea of Bubble because it's managed for them, it's hosted for them. If servers go down on Christmas Eve, they're not having to worry about it. You know, the server team are managing all of that, getting things back online. So that's a massive selling point for them. Obviously, there's a built-in security, built-in monitoring, all of that kind of thing. So they handle that, just like Shopify does for your e-commerce store. Like, you know, Shopify has Gymshark; it has massive brands on it. Gymshark, I'd imagine, can afford to build their own fully custom e-commerce system and rebuild a version of Shopify. But why would they? Because then they've got to manage all of that extra stuff.
Yeah.
So if we're working with businesses who need web portals or custom trackers or CRMs or whatever, or a startup who's building like a piece of software, we can offhand all of the hassle and pain to Bubble and the infrastructure, and we can focus on building great products, and then they can focus on selling it and building a business around it. That's the key selling point. And most real like existing businesses love that. Most experienced founders and startups love that. The people that don't necessarily like that and they want everything, they want to own all the code, it are the kind of real sort of like first time founders, and they assume they need to have everything, you know, in their pocket like that, and that usually is an indicator that it's not going to be a great fit. Just from like experience and having spoken with you know with that sort of person, and I can understand why. You know, there is that risk of if something goes wrong, I don't own the underlying code, but it's like you know, it's one of those things. It's a trade off that everyone has to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a story we can talk about? Of course, not naming your client, but where someone came to you and was like, "Hey, we had this solution that was traditionally built, and it kind
Mhm.
of sucks." You know, and you guys either rebuilt it or built something new for them with Bubble, and you know, of course, that was successful. Is there anything like that we can talk about?
Yeah, we've had a couple of instances where people have tried to. Well, on one side, there's clients who have come from a traditional development background, either a tech startup where they raised a ton of VC money and they built a product and they didn't get traction, they didn't get market fit, and they spent, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, for example, or over $1 million on a fully, uh, you know, whole engineering team and that kind of thing for maybe for a different business, and then they kind of got burnt by that and they figured out this isn't the right way to build a startup or the right way to build something or even just deploy business software.
Is there
Then
a
they did some.
specific case we can talk about where you know you had a client who got burned associated with it?
Not that I can, not without going into too much detail on it. No, but let's say in the SaaS space, right? So in the software space. So it was in, I suppose you could say, maybe they had a software B2B SaaS product in the sort of health industry, in the health space, and they, you know, spent a ton of money, and you know it was difficult to get traction, and then they kind of learned from that experience, and then they found Bubble, and then they found us, and then we built for a completely different business, but it was an idea that they were testing. Built them an MVP of that in about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, give or take, for like less than 20K, like let's say 15,000 US, for example,
Mm.
uh, versus a X amount of hundreds of thousands they'd spent on a whole development team. We built it with one developer, one maybe two developers total for about 15K, and they were able to take that to market, and any other funds they did have available was able to be used for marketing, customer acquisition, testing, getting feedback, and then building a roadmap. That's a big difference in the same output, the same quality of output in terms of the design, functionality, speed, security, the whole thing.
Mm.
But they'd spent 10x to get a engineering team put together of 5-10 people versus going the no code route where they were able to get to market in a fraction of the time. It was like an over a year development on one side, and then 6 weeks on the no code side for the new concept.
Wow.
So the savings are massive. The savings are almost too good to be true, and that's the thing that we have to be very careful about. Is in advertising and marketing is like, especially with experienced businesses where they are used to a tech team,
Yeah.
we have to be so careful that even though it is completely true, if we if we put the messaging wrong on time frame and cost savings, there's an assumption there that it's not going to be as good, or that it's not going to do the right thing. And how could it in this amount of time when all my experiences showed me that it takes a year plus to build something, and it
Yeah.
takes nearly $1 million. So there's kind of a weird catch-22 there of
Yeah.
how do we package this to show the benefits, but uh, without creating almost like an illusion that it is not going to be a good fit.
For sure, for sure. And I think the solution to that is, as posting content, and I
Yeah,
think a lot of
yeah,
that is educating the market. Where it's like, hey, I know you guys all believe it takes a year to build an MVP, and it takes you, $100,000.
mm,
Here we are doing that in 6 weeks and 15K, right? And not just saying, hey, I did it in 6 weeks and 50K, but like, here's the exact story of how we did it, which is what we're talking about here, right? They're a B2B health, SaaS health company. They came to you, that's where we can get a little specific, which is like, what were their problems that they were looking to, have you solve and your team. How would you actually go about approaching building that solution?
got it. And so this would formulate the structure of like of the LinkedIn post itself. So it'd be story driven, and
Yeah.
then would you have like how would you formulate a hook for something like that?
So usually a hook like this is a good like transformation kind of base hook, right? Like usually you want something that kind of punches people in the face. But again, I know this is a client, so like you don't want to roast them too hard. But like if you're my
Yeah.
client, I was straight up right. Like they spent X amount on a product that insert negative outcome. So let's
Yeah.
say their product didn't get a single user, right? I would say they spent 100K on a product that didn't get a single user. That's a pretty good hook, right?
Mhm.
3 months later, now they spent, maybe something easier. But the idea is like, hey, they spent 100K on a product and get a single user. They spent 25% of that to build an MVP that is now live in market and has acquired some sort of result. Here's how we help them do that. And then you can start with the story, right? 6 months ago, I met John. His name's hidden, of course, the founder of a B2B SaaS company in
Mhm.
the health sector. He recently spent X amount and X time with his team to try to build the SaaS. Here were the negative problems with that SaaS. That's when he met Bubble, when he came through an ad and he saw whatever ads. Then he booked a call with myself. Um, Here's how I helped him solve that problem. The first step was that we had that call. On the call, we discussed X, Y, and Z. I realized that his problem was, potentially 1, 2, and 3, and then you just kind of go from there and you tell the story. So you
So
make
it's like
sure,
a complete roadmap, like a complete
yeah,
roadmap from how you got there and what they did, why. It's kind of, it seems really obvious, doesn't it? But it's one of those things that when I sit down to write stuff, I struggle to think of how can I do it without exposing, without being too detailed and
yeah,
giving away things that maybe you shouldn't. So that's why I've always sort of shied away from it or kept it super generic.
question
Um,
for you. Would your clients be comfortable if you basically, let's say, share the numbers or what you did, but you don't share their name? So instead of their company name or instead of the founder's name, you
yep.
could say all the numbers, like how much they spent, let's assuming they failed, right? Like how much
Mhm.
they spent on that really long, really expensive MVP. Then, how did it fail? What was the new one that you built? What was the problems that you built the new MVP around?
Yep.
Um, and why did they need that? Like, would they be comfortable with you sharing that? Or legally speaking, would you be able to share that if you?
Yeah, I guess so. As part of like a case study,
There you go.
we could do that. Yeah, we could just line it up with them and sort of put together a case study. Yeah, and I think because we do case studies now anyway. We just tend to focus more on our output than maybe what they did before,
Gotcha.
and I'm kind of learning that because I've always been slow with case studies. I've never really done them,
Yeah.
much to my kind of regret, and I've never asked for reviews. So
Mm.
like we've had over 100 clients and we haven't, I think we've got like 29 or so reviews
Wow.
on Google. We could have got so many more but I never actually asked,
Like 100
which
posts
is a
right
real
there.
shame.
You got like 100 clients, bro. That's like 100 posts right there, dude. 100 posts.
Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah, exactly, yeah,
You're
exactly,
not
and
gonna do
you're right, like
100.
we don't
Yeah.
have to say we don't really have to say the client name, we don't really have to say
Yeah.
any real, we can just say the industry, keep it super generic and that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of missed opportunity there and I just didn't really know how to formulate it, so I think that's kudos to you for sort of, yeah, I'm going to give that a go today.
I'll send you a couple of case study posts that I wrote. And you
Cheers.
kind of follow the structure. Super,
Awesome.
super easy, super easy. I might even have a GPT that writes case study posts. I'll take a look. I'll take a look. So you could literally plug that in,
Awesome.
make a couple tweaks. But what I would recommend is let's say you have 100 clients, which you do. I would take, let's say, the top 5 clients in that 100. And how I would categorize top is, of course, if someone is high profile and you are able to share their name. So whatever, let's say you have some logos on your company website,
Hmm.
right? And those are typically people who are open to sharing their name. I would take one of those guys and write a case study post about them. So you have those 5 people. You write the case study post. You don't write all of them right away. You could write one every 3 weeks.
Hmm.
And then once you cycle through, or once you get to the fifth one, you could repost the first one again. So you literally can just cycle your 5 case study posts. Those are your 5 best case studies. You don't have to talk about all the 95 other people. But the idea is you have these 5 people who ideally you can mention their name. If not, that's okay. Who have significant results. Maybe that's like, they attracted X amount of capital. Now
Hmm.
they're worth this amount of money. They're generating this ARR. They have this many users. Really incredible results. Those are the ones you want to highlight. And you just kind of cycle through them. You know?
Hmm. So how does that? Is there not like a level of fatigue there with cycling through content? Is there? What's the cadence of those 5 posts? Is that, would you say once every month, once
three
every
weeks, yeah.
three
Once
weeks?
every 3 weeks to a month. Like you don't want to spam your feed with case study posts because
Yep.
they're. I think we talked about this on our cigar night, right? Like you have content
Yeah, I think so.
like the thing, which is about what you do, and there's
Yep.
content about your audience, which is purely about what they're interested in, and then you have
Yep.
the overlap. So case study posts are purely the thing. So it's purely about you. So like you don't
Hmm.
want to spam the feed too much about what you're doing basically, and why you matter, why you're so cool. Basically, it's like if I'm telling you I'm the best guy and I'm the shit, you're not gonna listen to me after a while, right? You want to listen. Oh, how I'm gonna help you, Reese. Here's Reese. This is how you're gonna benefit. Et cetera, et cetera. So I would say once every month or 3 weeks. But the
Okay.
beauty is that now that you have the cycle, post number one goes out in day one, and then post number one goes out again 15 weeks later. 15 weeks, that's around like 4 months. So
Yeah.
the idea here is that sure, some people in your audience who are common followers, they might say, oh, okay, you posted that already. But the idea is that you're going to attract more people who might not have seen it the first time,
Mm.
but now you have that great case study versus let's say you wrote number 6 of someone who wasn't really great, and now it's like, oh, you kind of missed an opportunity to really impress them, you know?
And would you use this? Would it just be a complete repost, or would you rephrase it all? Same content but rewritten.
That's a good question. Depends on how the performance of your first post went. So if your first post kind
Okay.
of tanked, you want to revamp the hook. Um, Also, sometimes what I do is I just read it. I'm like, hey, that part could be better. You just rewrite it a little bit. But ideally, you want to keep 90 to 95% of the thing the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. I suppose it's like, again, a callback to sort of Alex Hormozy, who I listen
Yeah.
to every day
Same.
religiously. Um, I think he says something like people need to be reminded more than they need to be told.
True.
So it's just like a constant reminder, and even if people have seen it before, like just you're just reminding them, just staying top of mind. It's kind of like, I suppose, to a certain extent, when you see logos at football games and you see logos of big companies, like it doesn't even say what they do, but you see the Microsoft logo, or you see
Yeah.
the, in the UK, Deliveroo, which is like a delivery, like an Uber Eats kind of thing, and it's just reinforcing. It's just reminding them that they exist, reminding people that they exist. It's not saying we do this, we do that. It's just a case of staying top of mind. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of advertising and marketing is kind of like that. And obviously with LinkedIn, you get the benefit of explaining case studies and but I guess you've just got to keep pushing that, reminding people that you're there and why they should work with you until the time is right. And then sometimes it might be 6 months, but if you stay top of mind throughout that 6 month period, which we've had now, where people we've marketed to 6 months ago, uh, they see the same campaigns or they see new campaigns from us and they come back because the timing is now right.
Yeah. Here's a good example or approach to think about this. Do you like watches?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I don't really
Awesome.
collect them, but I'd like to maybe one day.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Let's say you're walking around the street and on this big ass billboard, like this video billboards, you see like a 1 minute Rolex ad. Are you gonna watch that Rolex ad or no?
Yeah. I'd watch at least the first 10 seconds
Yeah.
for sure.
You'd watch it if you could. Let's say you're waiting in a
Yeah.
subway
Yeah.
station.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you'd
Yeah.
watch the Rolex ad. 4 months later, you see the same Rolex ad. Are you gonna watch it or no?
Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
There
Because
you
of
go.
the yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good Rolex ad, and it
Yeah.
had all the famous tennis players and the soccer players, and they were like,
Yep.
oh, "I'm wearing a Rolex, and that's why I should buy a Rolex." I'm saying this because I keep seeing the same one in my subway station, and I see
Right.
it every single day, and I still watch it, at least for a couple seconds. I still watch it because this
Yep.
is great. I think good content is the same way. Is that if you really have a good timeless post, and that's the key word there is timeless, you
Mhm.
can put that out again, and people are still going to read it because it's valuable content. You know?
It's a good framing for it. Yeah, it's a really good frame. And if you resonate as well, whether it's aspirationally with obviously like a Rolex ad, it's the aspiration
Exactly.
side, or if you're hitting them in the feels with like a feel good type post, like if they see it again, they're not going to skip over it. Just like any marketing, I guess. If they like Airbnb for me is similar to that. So whenever I see an Airbnb
Yeah.
TV commercial, I'll watch it. I know I've seen it 10 times before, or the basically the same thing, but they
Yeah.
have a really great narrative approach where they're not talking about Airbnb. They're talking, they're showing a family going on vacation to a cabin and all
That's
this cool stuff. And then at the end, the Airbnb logo comes up, and it's
yeah.
like this whole really great narrative that just makes me feel really good. I don't know why, but it's the music and it's the combination of
Yeah.
setting. I know it's Airbnb and I know they exist, but I watch it every time anyway. And there's quite a few examples like that. I think marketing can be really powerful, and I think as advertisers, as marketers, as people trying to promote their own business on LinkedIn or anything,
Yeah.
it's easy just to forget that and think, oh, I'm just pestering everyone by putting a post out today. I won't bother.
Yeah.
When actually, you might have some fans that really enjoy your content who just like reading it, even if it's the same sort of thing you posted sort of a few months ago. So yeah, I think I need to be a little bit stronger on that.
Yeah, and that Airbnb ad is a great example. I've never watched one in my life, but I have a decent idea of what you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about. And I think that Airbnb ad is a perfect example of what like proximity content looks like. Because
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing: let's say I'm the owner of Airbnb, right? And I'm trying to sell you Airbnb. You don't have never heard about what it is. I'm like, okay, here's Airbnb. I have this app. You can book things on this app, and it's amazing. You should use it. You're not gonna listen to me
Yep.
because I'm trying to sell you this shit, right?
Yep.
But here I am. Okay, what are you interested in? Maybe you're a dad. Maybe you have two kids. Maybe your kids want to have fun. Maybe you've been working your ass off for the last,
Mm-hmm.
2 years, and you want to have some sort of vacation with your family. So here I am showing you a video of this family going on a trip to the woods with their
Mm-hmm.
cabin, and at the end, I just slap on Airbnb. So the reason they do that is because they are talking not about what they're doing, but about what their audience is interested in. Their audience wants
Mm-hmm.
that getaway. They want that experience. Like you said, like when you feel that, you hear the sound, you see the mood, the film.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you in that like really nice mood. That mood is engineered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually, it's like a calming kind of an awe kind of mood, or it's like just it makes you, you know, it just makes you happy and like calm, right? So that mood, they have that mood in target, and like okay, that's the mood I'm trying to engineer. And from there, they show you content that you can relate to because, potentially you are also one of those people who are seeking a getaway. That's why they have different Airbnb ads because, okay, this one targets this group of people, this one
Yep.
targets that group of people, right? And the idea is like at the end, they show you the logo because, okay, if you want that experience, then you come to us. Not just, hey, we're, this app, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think they do a really good job in kind of describing, based on what you've told me, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
experience.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. You're selling that desired outcome, right? You're selling that
Yeah.
desired experience, and you're not selling the buttons you have to click, the times you have to choose. Oh, there's no time available for this, this cabin. They're not selling the process. They're selling that outcome of you taking the family down to
Exactly.
down to the lake, going on a boat trip, whatever it might be. And I think that's really it's hard to replicate that. I think like it's understandable when you see it, you go, I see exactly what they're doing, especially if you kind of understand the premises of marketing. You can see what they're doing, but when
Yeah.
you try and apply that to your business, and again, I think this is a good argument for what you do as an external agency. It's very hard to frame that for my business. Like,
Yeah.
sell? How can I sell that? Attract the right people as well, and kind of combine all of that, and that's really really difficult. It's like we don't historically we don't really do our own websites. I mean, I have for testing in the most recent one, um, but historically most web designers don't build their own site because they'll just focus on the processes and they'll focus on all the stuff that isn't that exciting, but it's kind of exciting to you.
Hmm. I see.
Whereas when you go to an agency, they'll focus on the messaging, the positioning, the experience,
Smart.
and getting to the desired end result. It's very difficult to do the same thing for your own business. And do you write your own like LinkedIn? Do you struggle more writing your own LinkedIn posts than you do with clients?
I do. I do because I, just like you said, right? Because I write LinkedIn posts, I tend to focus more on what the tactical stuff is. So I'm like, okay, here's how you write a hook. Here's how you
Yeah.
write this kind of post. Here's the three type of posts that benefited most from me. but then I
Mhm.
kind of lose the point. Versus, dude, this could be a good piece of content for me. I hopped on the call with a guy, like you told you yesterday, right? And he asked me some really interesting questions. He was like, "What's a time where?" Long story short, he was like, "What's a time where you struggle to create content for your own brand?" I'm like, "Bro, I'm going through that phase right now." You know? So I was like, "That's a really good post because I could post that, and that'd be really resonating with people in my audience because they probably also struggle to do that." So,
Mhm.
by being real and, not saying I'm the shit, but like, hey, I actually struggle writing content. My
Mm.
client can get 100K impressions on his post, but I'm getting like, dude, I'm getting like 400 sometimes. Like it's terrible. And I'm writing it myself with the same strategy. So I'm like, that's what really discourages me sometimes. So, um, but yeah, like that's why I think even especially for people who are in the weeds, right? There's value hiring someone. It's kind of that analogy. It's like, oh, a doctor's not going to operate on himself, or a doctor's not
Yep.
going to prescribe his own medicine,
Or
right?
a lawyer. Perfect example is like you shouldn't represent yourself, as a
Yeah,
lawyer,
there
right?
you go.
Like if you're a lawyer, always get a lawyer. Or
Yeah,
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 yeah. And I think it also plays into the power of influencer marketing as well. So all of these influencers that you have now, the some of the best performing content, at least that I've seen, and where they create real emotional connection with their audience is when they show vulnerability,
yeah,
or when they show like, I may be this person who's got 10 million followers and I've got this amazing lifestyle, but actually I suffer from anxiety or
yeah,
depression, or I have this problem, or I've got a skin condition or whatever. And then that relatability
yeah,
makes it so easy for people to have not just an aspirational connection with that person, like
yeah,
aspiring to be them, but also like an emotional connection with a strong foundation in, we're all just kind of living our lives trying to do the best that we can. I just happen to be an influencer. This person happens to be a stay-at-home person, at school or at college or whatever, trying to maybe get into the space, or doing whatever they're doing.
yeah,
And we've both got the same problems, or we've both got the same concerns and worries. So I think, like you said there, with like talking about the struggles of writing your own content, I'd say that's a really, putting a spotlight on your own problems is actually
for
probably a
sure.
really good marketing strategy. Whereas everyone's like, never talk about the bad stuff. But
Exactly.
that's probably what performs better than just saying, oh, we did this amazing result. We did this amazing result. Because then you're just doing everything what everyone else always does. But if you can explain problems and where you're falling down,
Yeah.
it builds a lot of trust, because it shows that you're not perfect, but you also understand where those imperfections are, and hopefully how to avoid them if you're working on like a B2B project.
Exactly. Exactly. It's really similar to building MVP. And I was writing a post about this with my client, and he had a really good quote. He was like, an MVP is not, 4 floors of your, 20-story building. It's just a lobby. So you want people to come in, and then once you build a lobby, then people can tell you what, you should build it like. And I was like, that is a really good analogy. And we wrote about that. And yeah, it's really similar to like kind of building your own business. You want to show people that you have the problems or that you're kind of going through problems, but you also are working towards solving it. It's like,
Yeah.
what's that like team management or like employee kind of quote where they're like, oh, if you don't have the answer right now, tell me when you'll have the answer. Not just, oh, I don't know what to do. It's
Yep.
like if I'm your
Yes.
employee and you ask me, oh, did you finish this project? And I'm like, no, I haven't, but I'm gonna get it done by X date. That's better
Yep.
than saying I haven't done it, right? Or I'm almost done. You know. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Like keeping it, I suppose, not. People want certainty. People
yeah,
want certainty in whatever it is. And I think uncertainty is obviously the underlying cause of a lot of anxiety, and anxiety disorders is uncertain spaces,
for sure.
and trying to pursue certainty in whatever it may be. Um, so I think if you can provide certainty, whether it's through a prior to engaging with an agency, let's say someone's about to engage with you, but they want certainty of outcomes.
Yeah,
If you can not necessarily guarantee outcomes, but show them a track record of evidence
yeah,
from historical clients, or even just your own posting and your own learnings
yeah,
of problems you've experienced and sort of how you resolved it, that gets them closer to that point of certainty without having to put crazy guarantees and slap on crazy offers and things that maybe aren't necessarily achievable, or overstated. If
yeah,
you can just show a track record of uh, journey, that does a lot more for solving uncertainty than coming up with guarantees that every
yeah,
kid out of college is putting on marketing content now. And the same with us with like case studies and just evidence from previous clients. And obviously, we're quite lucky in that we've been around for a little while now and we've built up a great track record and all of that stuff. So that solves that level of uncertainty. But
Yep.
then I was talking to Oliver on the podcast.
Mm.
It's coming out today. That's not enough. Social proof isn't enough anymore. We now go on a sales call with a proof of concept we've already done free of charge to show the client, show the prospects what we would do for them. And it doesn't take that long to do,
Okay.
but it solves the problem of uncertainty that these guys are just telling me what they're going to do in black and white text. But actually, we show them, we create a really nice design. This is what the dashboard will look like. And that's how they get that certainty that just removes that anxiety. And it's not always a great thing to solve uncertainty from a personal point of view, because you can't live life like that. But when you're trying to engage in a business relationship, if you can solve that uncertainty for them through evidence and through being genuine, that is a great way of doing it. And that's what we're trying to do more now.
100%. 100%. That's really a good takeaway there, I think.
Great.
I'm happy I haven't gotten that stage yet where I have to write the post before I hop on the call using information I do not know. I'm
But
happy I haven't got there yet.
but you have, right? You've already got it. You've got the outlines and frameworks. So
Yeah.
when you jump on a call, you just flash up a screen and say, "This is the framework that we think would work really well for you. It works for a similar client.
Sure.
This is how we formulate a hook." And all you're doing there is you're not giving them the end result, but you're giving them the journey that gets them to that end result. And then you can talk about that end result, but also show them a pathway to how you'll get there. So it solves that uncertainty of, okay, this guy's just promised me this or shown me this. You don't want them to get off the call without knowing how to get there. What car they're going to have to take to get there, or what flight they'll have to be on. You can't sell a holiday to the Bahamas without them knowing at some point what airline they're traveling with.
True. True. That's right.
Great,
Heck,
awesome. I
we've
think
been
I think we've covered a huge amount there, man. I don't know.
got
I don't
a
want to
ton
take
of
up any more
posts.
of your time.
Yeah, we got so many posts for you, bro. We got the origin story. We got how you got interested in, tech. We got Bubble versus traditional programming. We almost got a case study post. I would just
Yeah,
add a little more detail in there, as I
sweet.
mentioned earlier, right? Like, hey, if you can talk about the guy without mentioning his name, but basically, like, I'll send you a couple, basically. So, one of my clients, he works with, a very, let's just say, one of the biggest logistics companies in Europe, pretty big, like a
Mhm.
couple $1 billion in revenue. So he couldn't say that he was a client, but we basically just said, oh, these guys were worth X, and they
Mhm.
struggled with their biggest customer, who was Dell, which we could mention, right? So in the end, if people from that company might know who it is, but people
Mhm.
outside of it will have zero clue who it is because
Yeah,
they're not
yeah,
involved. So that was
awesome. I'll stop the recording from here, and then we'll carry on chatting just for a little minute.
yeah, let's do it.
But appreciate your time on that one. Thank you.
Of course, man. Of course.